This is the Lightning Junkies Podcast with your host, Chaz Cryptus. On this episode of the podcast, I have Gui Gomes from OpenNode and Laaps. OpenNode is a Bitcoin-only payment processor that accepts both on-chain Bitcoin payments and off-chain Bitcoin payments on the Lightning Network. This is the 5th episode of the Lightning Junkies podcast, and on this episode, we talk about quite a bit. It actually became the longest episode of the podcast I've ever recorded. We talk about Lightning Spin, OpenNode, Laaps, reasons to be skeptical of the Lightning Network, and much more. This is just a reminder that this podcast has no sponsors. I rely on my listeners to fund this podcast as much as possible. You can find the crowdfund link, the link to tipping.me, and the link to bottle.li in the show notes. If any of this content is up your alley, please consider chipping in to the links previously mentioned. I would really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and jump into the 5th episode of the Lightning Junkies podcast, already in progress. I would like to go ahead and welcome Ruis to the Lightning Junkies podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, I was just kind of curious, what's your background kind of before you got into Bitcoin?
So I'm a software engineer by trade. I have been working at a number of startups for the past 5 years or so. And I've worked all over the place on big startups, small startups. And when OpenNode invited me to help them with their MVP, I was really a Bitcoin newbie. I didn't know much about it. And I just dove right into the Bitcoin rabbit hole, and it all started from there. But I guess my background is just a regular computer scientist, and I just recently dove in Bitcoin.
Okay. What did your entry to Bitcoin look like?
It was very hectic. It was very hard to absorb all that information all at once. So the OpenNode team, a lot of our team members have been in Bitcoin for quite a while, so they're kind of veterans in the scene. And for me to even understand all the names of people they were constantly mentioning and all the concepts that they were throwing around all the time, just for me to get that level of just grasping or just barely scratching the surface of what there is to understand about Bitcoin, that was very, very challenging. But fortunately, there's a lot of information out there right now, and a lot of books, podcasts, and being on Twitter helped a lot. So it was very hectic, but definitely, I would say only guessing, right? But probably a lot easier than getting in the early days where information was much more scarce. Entering Bitcoin nowadays just requires you to be a little bit willing to really dive in and actually take your time to really invest in learning. And if you do that, then it's not that hard. It's just time consuming, and you have to learn all of the things.
Would you say that you were kind of sucked down the rabbit hole, as a lot of people like to say?
Yeah, absolutely. In the beginning, I was just this was just another job for me, so I didn't think much about the whole Bitcoin thing. Obviously, I found it interesting, but I never thought it would get so far down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and going to all these conferences and consuming all this content. So it was definitely very surprising for me, because the more I learned, it all started with just being around Bitcoiners and just grabbing Mastering Bitcoin by Andreas. I thought, well, since I'm working in this space, might as well be informed. And I just started with that, a very innocent first look at Bitcoin material. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn, and the more I felt like I really don't know anything about Bitcoin. And that dove me even deeper into the forced me to find more sources of content, more information to consume, more things to learn. And yeah, I think that's the rabbit hole, right? The more you learn, the more you know, the more you notice you don't really know anything. So the more you want to learn, it kind of snowballs, really. It's interesting.
Would you say that since you're a software engineer, computer scientist, that your interest was more slanted towards the tech side of things versus the economic side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started with Mastering Bitcoin, right? Because I thought initially, well, this Bitcoin thing is clearly like a technical challenge, right? It's just another technology that I will have to learn. Same thing as, well, now there's AWS. Let me learn about all the things AWS, all the things cloud, all the things, serverless. It's just another technology. That was what I thought in the beginning. So I just have to learn the ins and outs of this technology, right? So it was just another thing, just another, technology that I was adopting. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized that obviously the technological prowess that is Bitcoin is obviously not to be downplayed. What is very, very interesting is all the other aspects, the aspects that give Bitcoin itself sovereignty and make it freedom money, really. That's what really, got me really hooked. And it went from being just another thing I do for work to being, one of the thing I dedicate the most hours in my day to. And I really, in just the span of not even 2 years, I don't see myself doing anything other than being in the Bitcoin space for the foreseeable future. Obviously, being to answer your question, obviously being a technical person that has made me more inclined to learn the technical in and outs of Bitcoin. I got sucked down to the whole other aspect of Bitcoin, just as anyone else, I guess.
Understood. Kind of along those same lines, what do you see the most powerful, maybe quality or use case for Bitcoin currently?
Well, it really depends on who you're asking, right? If you ask someone living in Venezuela or Argentina, your answer will be, well, this is money that can't be hyperinflated. It's not under control by the government. I can actually leave my country with this form of money and I won't get, stopped by anyone. If you ask someone that's living in a Western country, such as the US or even Portugal, Bitcoin is really money that is permissionless. I think that's one thing that makes it very useful still for things like payments, even though, Bitcoin was not really meant to do payments with things like the Lightning Network, for example. We can easily do payments on top of Bitcoin. And even though that's not its primary use case for now, it's still very, very useful if you want to buy things that the government thinks you shouldn't buy, or even if it's completely legal. If the banks don't think they should accept your business, if the credit card companies think it's a bad look, if they're processing whatever CBD, weed, pornography, if they think that's not, they don't want to have those kinds of businesses because it has a bad look for them. With Bitcoin, there's no one to say you can't transact for any kind of business or any kind of use case, right? So I think, in my perspective, I really like it obviously as a savings technology, and I think that's its primary use case for now. But I also, obviously, working at OpenNode also gives me a different perspective. But I also think it's a powerful technology that allows for permissionless payments, and I think that's also very, very interesting. And yeah, the work we've been doing at OpenNode really focused on that particular aspect of it. So I might be a little bit biased, but yeah, just the savings and the payments for me as a Westerner, those are really the two aspects that I dedicate myself to at the moment.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to ask, what is your just general feeling on the Lightning Network? And we can kind of drill into that a little bit later.
Well, I think the Lightning Network really is a tool that is bringing payments back to Bitcoin, right? Because everyone knows what happens to the fees, and eventually the fee market will be, there will be such demand for block space that the fees have to go up, and it will be very impractical to use Bitcoin for all transactions that are for your everyday coffee. So I think having technology that allows you to bring the payments back to Bitcoin, and also not only that, but also bring new kinds of payments onto using Bitcoin, like micropayments, like the streaming of payments, HODL invoices. So I think it brings the fun back to doing Bitcoin payments and coming up with new business models and new ways of doing payments that weren't possible before. I think that's very, very interesting. And the more time we invest in it, the more we think it's the future. And by we I mean the OpenNode team, but obviously me personally, I think this is a technology that will take what is now a savings technology and will make it the money of everyone, and will make it not only you can put your life savings in it, but you can also transact in it. There's no reason you have to transact with fiat if you have Bitcoin and if you have the Lightning Network.
Got it. I definitely want to jump into OpenNode here, but before we do that, I wanted to ask, I was reading that you had done a project concurrent or previous to OpenNode, the Lightning Spin project. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Lightning Spin was actually a project that I developed while I was already working at OpenNode. I just did it, as a side project, nights and weekends kind of thing. So Lightning Spin was really my way of learning, throwing myself into the weeds of actually doing Lightning payments, right? So that has made me okay. So I want to do my own thing on Lightning to really understand the ins and outs of this technology. So I just had the idea of doing the simplified roulette to try to be a fun thing that allow people to do instant payments, micro payments, and getting their money back. So withdrawing their money instantly, paying per spin. And that was just the means to an end for me to learn, okay, I have to set up my own node for this. How do I do that? Okay, I have to hook my web server, my backend into my own node. How do I do that? And it was just a way to really force me into learning all these things. But I guess, you know, being a kind of a perfectionist person, I actually wanted to look polished, and I actually launched it and wanted to see what people had to say about it. And it actually caught on a little bit because I guess people like spending sats and having ways of multiplying their stack, I guess. But eventually it got too big for my taste, and I ended up selling it. And it's still running, and it's still a very successful project that I'm happy to have helped build. But yeah, that's the background on Lightning Spin.
Yeah, when I first got into Lightning, Lightning Spin was one of the first things that I used and kind of lost not a good amount of sats, but a fair amount, just playing around with that.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people. That actually makes me very happy that Lightning Spin was their first Lightning transaction. I've heard that from dozens of people, and a lot of people in the Lightning community told me that, hey, anytime I need to test if my node is up and running, and if I can make a payment, I just use a quick spin on Lightning Spin to check that. So that's really really, it makes me very very happy to have made that happen.
Agreed. Would you say that gambling is one of the major use cases for Lightning right now?
I wouldn't say it's a major use case for Lightning or even Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, but it's just something that, again, it's something that is has a bad look on the society, and the I guess it's just a human condition that you like to gamble, and you like the human race likes to take risks. They like to seize opportunities, and if there is money to be made and they think they can make it because they're on a lucky day or whatever, they will take that chance. And traditionally, with traditional payment methods, there's no way of doing that. And if the Lightning Network makes that possible, and it makes it possible, not only technically possible, but it also allows for, you can pay per spin, so you can do a 5 cent spin on Lightning Spin and withdraw the. If you win two times your money, you can withdraw instantly the 10 cents back to your account. So I guess it makes it technically possible, and if it's technically possible, and because humans like to gamble, someone will end up making a product that makes that possible. But I wouldn't say it's a major use case. Fortunately, with the Lightning Network, there's a lot of privacy, so you don't really know what's going on. There's no chain analysis. There's no addresses to track or transactions to track. So no one really knows what the major use case for Lightning is right now. But I would guess that it's not gambling.
Got it. But let's go ahead and jump into OpenNode. How did your involvement kind of start? You kind of touched on a little bit, but let's kind of go a little bit more in depth here.
Yeah, so I was working at the same co-working place, the same co-working space that one of the OpenNode co-founders as well was also working there. He studied computer science with me, so we were college mates. They needed some help, and he knew me, and I was right there next to him at his co-working spot. And I was looking for a contract at the time for contract work, and he just brought me on just to help them with some front end work at the time. And it all started from there, really, just being around Bitcoiners and having to, I wanted to do good front end work, but I also wanted to understand the technology we're building and everything that went to that made OpenNode what it is, right? So that involved having to learn about Bitcoin, and from the moment I set myself the goal of learning Bitcoin, I just dove into the Bitcoin rabbit hole. But it all started from there, really. It was just a random coincidence, I guess. But I'm very glad it happened.
Could you give our listeners a quick rundown of what OpenNode actually is?
Yeah, for sure. So OpenNode is a Bitcoin payment processor. So we help businesses accept Bitcoin payments online and in person. We have launched from day one with SegWit support, with the Lightning Network support, and we are also a Bitcoin only company. So the only things we don't have any other cryptocurrencies or blockchain things or ICOs. We're just a regular old Bitcoin company. There's only Bitcoin in our checkouts. We don't accept anything else other than that. So that kind of differentiates us from the rest of crypto payment processors, quote unquote. Yeah, I guess that's what we do. We since we have Lightning Network support, we also focus a lot on providing not only merchant infrastructure. So we have plugins for Shopify, WooCommerce, and a bunch of other e-commerce platforms. We also have kind of a simplified POS system. So if you have a bar or if you have a store, an actual physical store, you can just go on your OpenNode dashboard and you have this calculator widget thing that you can just type in how much you want to charge your customer, and we will generate a very quick invoice for you so you can charge your customers Bitcoin without having any kind of infrastructure in place. But aside from that infrastructure we have set up for merchants, we also have infrastructure that we set up for developers. So we have an API that allows anyone that has an idea to build an app or something like that. You can just sign up on OpenNode, and we provide you with an API that you can use to receive Bitcoin, and even programmatically you can send Bitcoin out. So you can do programmatic withdrawals and just send money out, and you can build all kinds of services really without having to maintain your own node, or without having to know what a channel is, or having to maintain liquidity in your channels. So those are our two primary focuses right now.
Got it. So if I asked if you guys would add Dogecoin, you're not going to add Dogecoin, are you?
No, we're not we're not going to add Dogecoin. We actually, funny story, we had Um, a while back, Roger Ver actually offered us $1.25 million to add Bitcoin Cash because he thought Tim Draper is our main investor in our seed round. And he thought, well, if Tim Draper is willing to invest in these guys and is willing to invest in the Lightning Network, I will make a bet, and I will put in $1.25 million of my own money for these guys to start accepting Bitcoin Cash, because he kind of wanted to prove the point that Bitcoin Cash was better than doing Lightning payments, I guess. Yeah, but we turned that down, and yeah, we have turned down all kinds of crazy offers for ICOs and all kinds of tokens. I think being Bitcoin only really gives us an edge. And recently, we're starting to see a lot more companies starting to focus on or starting to drop their attention on all these tokens, because they really are a distraction, and they really don't help your bottom line that much. Maybe back in the day it helped because these companies were paying you millions of dollars to start accepting their tokens, but now that their money is starting to fade away, they don't have that much to offer. And it's just a very big distraction because now you have to teach your customers what all these tokens are and what is the real Bitcoin and all these kinds of things. So I guess we have the edge of being, pro Bitcoin and having the ability to focus our attention on Bitcoin and adopting all the latest and greatest Bitcoin technologies that help us save block space or help us make transactions faster or whatever that is. And it also helps us in the side of user experience. So we can focus our checkout experience, for example, we can focus 100% on making sure your customers as a merchant, they will know what to do when they see our checkout, because there's only a Bitcoin. They can choose to pay on chain or through Lightning, but that's really only the only decision they need to make. And really, if they don't know what Lightning is, the first thing we present you is the on chain address and QR code for you to make that payment. So there's really nothing you to confuse the person that's trying to pay, right? So I guess that also helps us in terms of user experience, which has been a very big thing we have going on for us. I guess that's what we've heard from the community. People are happy to see that we are a Bitcoin only payment processor, and we see a lot of companies now starting to start this thinking this way. So like Trezor released their Bitcoin only firmware, and there are a lot of other companies doing the same. So I think we were early on this trend, but we definitely want to stay on it forever, really.
Got it. So I kind of wanted to dig in a little bit on the dev side at OpenNode. What were the challenges kind of surrounding the Lightning Network and maybe Bitcoin generally?
Well, technically, the challenges, I guess, for the Lightning Network was that we were very early. So we launched May last year, and the first mainnet Lightning thing started to go live on January, March last year. So we were like one of the first few things really on Lightning. So in the beginning, the network was really, really small. There were like not even 50 Bitcoin in the network. So it was properly small, and there were almost no people running their own nodes, and there were, everyone was just using the command line, and liquidity wasn't properly spread out. So, and there were a lot of challenges making sure that we could make payments and we could receive payments without having an enormous failure rate, right? Because if the point of Lightning as a payment processor is to be able to accept Bitcoin very, very quickly, if you have to go through, 5 failures to route and then you just have to give up, that kind of defeats the purpose. So there were a lot of challenges there, but that just kind of faded away with all the improvements that the protocol developers did over the last year or so. And also just by the fact that the network just naturally grew, and people started, there's wallets like, for example, Breeze Wallet. When you install it, the Breeze team actually sets up and starts a channel for you from them to you. So you instantly have incoming liquidity. You don't even have to think about it. So I think there was a lot of effort by all kinds of parties to make this easier. But I think technically, obviously, there's the technical challenge of running, a startup, of having a startup that deals with Bitcoin. So there are a number of challenges there, which were kind of already well known because there are a lot of other Bitcoin companies a lot older than we are. But there were a lot more user experience challenges. So we're still and every day we're improving. We actually released a couple hours ago the new version of our checkout, which we added a help center right there in the checkout, which helps you as our customer. It helps you understand what is on chain and what is this Lightning thing. How I'm paying through Coinbase. I don't know anything about Bitcoin. How can I do that? So there's a lot of other challenges that are not technical, but are also, one of our main focuses as a business. And everyone in our team is thinking about it, from engineers to designers to, really everyone has a say on in a different perspective on things we should do to improve our user experience. So also that has also been very challenging for us.
Understood. Something on my end is I like to be a very intellectually honest and try to kind of examine any possible faults in my, thought process and my beliefs, etc. So I like to try to examine possibly the Steelman arguments against Lightning. Do you have any good arguments against using the Lightning Network or any similar kind of thoughts to that?
Well, not against using the Lightning Network right now. I think having channels and making sure that people understand the concept that you have money on your side of the channel and you don't have incoming liquidity. Concepts like these are very hard to explain, and I think there's been a lot of progress lately by everyone in the field to make that easier. But that will continue to be challenging, and that it's not really perfect by any means right now. And I think that's a very big argument. And also, the fact that you need watchtowers to make sure that you don't get you don't no one can spend funds that should be yours, things like that. Those are also being solved and being fixed, and they have easy solutions such as, well, just come online once a day. It's not the end of the world, but those are not still ideal situations. And the fact that you can send money directly to a peer right now, and there's also solutions to that, such as LNURL, and solutions coming straight to the protocol level soon. And I think the biggest argument that people make is that, well, if fees on chain are so high, maybe $5, $50, $100, how are you supposed to start a Lightning channel that is actually a hot wallet, right? Are you going to spend $200, of which $100 is the fee, to start transacting on Lightning? That doesn't make much sense. But then there are solutions for that, such as having multiple participants opening a channel at the same time and splitting the cost amongst them. Those also have some challenges, but there are solutions for everything that I can think of would be a reason for you not to use the Lightning Network, or a reason for the Lightning Network not to succeed in the medium to long term. And I think as long as people keep their interest in Lightning, and as long as there are this many people working at the protocol level and at the layer three, above, building things like OpenNode and building things like Lightning wallets and building Lightning apps. I think if the people continue developing, I think none of the obstacles are going to be unsurmountable. For sure, there are solutions for everything.
Okay, understood. Kind of moving on slightly here. A trend that's becoming more common in the Bitcoin and maybe the crypto space generally is KYC. I'm sure you probably saw this question coming. OpenNode added KYC somewhat recently. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so we added KYC. So right now in our platform, if you sign up as a merchant, so if you sign up as someone or some company that wants to accept Bitcoin payments, we ask you who you are and what you do. Um, so how do you make your money? Because we're legally required to. And our focus as a company is to ensure our longevity, right? We don't want to go away because we're not complying with the US regulation, or we're not complying with the law. So we want to make sure that what we're building is going to, you know, pass the test of time and continue operating long into the future, and we can continue contributing to the Bitcoin space and continue bringing on more and more merchants into the Bitcoin economy. So to do that, we had to comply with the law, right? I think it's very straightforward, but yeah, we don't KYC our the final customers, so our checkout, anyone can pay, and there's no KYC there. But if you sign up as a merchant, we do have to know who you are, and that's just the law. And obviously, we weren't asking for all this information since the very beginning, but we did allow anyone that didn't, agree or wanted to provide their KYC information over to us for whatever reason, really. We allow them to just skip KYC and withdraw all the money they had in our platform, if they had any, and just go on with their lives and just use an alternative solution that doesn't require that, because we don't want to take anyone's money. We just want to make sure that we're compliant with law, and we continue operating our business within the legal setting, which is what we have to do, right?
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned that you guys don't KYC the end client there. I believe that BitPay started doing something similar to that. Would you say that OpenNode has a big advantage or some advantage over BitPay?
Well, yeah, we have. I do believe that there is a lot of advantages of using OpenNode versus using BitPay. We don't KYC our the end customers, so that's a big plus because there's a lot less friction, and which means that chances are of a person actually paying the end invoice, the chances are much higher because they don't have to fill in a bunch of stuff. They really just have to pay the Bitcoin invoice or the Lightning invoice. So that's a big advantage. But there's also the advantage that people can use actually the Lightning network with us, which isn't the case with BitPay. They can use SegWit. There's a bunch of things that people can use OpenNode for that wouldn't be possible with BitPay. And one of those things is just using the API I previously mentioned. You have full and total control of your OpenNode account, including the Lightning Network. So you can start building apps that use micropayments and that send micropayments out. So that's an example of a thing you couldn't do with BitPay. But I think, yeah, just adopting a company or if you're thinking about starting to accept Bitcoin payments in your company, choosing a Bitcoin only company that has adopted every Bitcoin technology that helped them being pro Bitcoin and adopting the technology that is available to save block space or to make transactions faster, for example, and that has no shit coins in the platform. So there's no Bitcoin Cash, there's no, all other shit coins. That makes, for me, that would be a compelling argument. It's just a simplified experience. I do think our user experience is better than anyone else's really in the payment processing field, just because we do invest a lot in our user experience, but also because we have the advantage of not having to worry about how are we going to make the user select amongst 30 coins, or how are we going to explain which coin they should use. So just the fact that we're Bitcoin only gives us a lot of advantage, and obviously having a better user experience will translate in people paying more often, and that's just statistical, right? Because even if you think that's a myth, obviously all these companies doing payment processing, they invest a lot of time in maximizing the amount of people that complete checkout successfully, which means that they see your checkout and they see your invoice and they actually pay it and go through with whatever they were going to purchase, right? So I think adopting a payment processor that has this focus on improving user experience in the Bitcoin space would definitely be something I would consider if I were to be in that position.
Got it. So, being a part of a payment processor, I was curious about your opinion of BTC Pay Server.
Yeah, everyone in our team are fans of BTC Pay Server. I think it gives you so much optionality, right? Because now you don't have to trust BitPay, you don't have to trust OpenNode, you don't really have to trust anyone. If you don't want to use any of those options, you can simply host your own BTC Pay Server instance in your own node, and there's no one you need to answer to, and that's great, really. And we're all fans of the mission of that company or of that project, really. But yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think the use case for it might be the same as open nodes if you think about it in a very narrow mindset, because both things or both projects allow you to accept payments, but they're really very, very different in the sense that obviously OpenNode is a compliance solution. It is integrated with a lot of banking partners, which allow us to trade your funds instantly, trade your Bitcoin for fiat instantly. And we're going to introduce a feature that allows you to just trade a portion of your Bitcoin into fiat, and or you can set what your preferences are in terms of converting to fiat. So obviously both platforms are very different in a legal sense, and in as the sense that for a merchant that is worried about having a reliable payment processor that is completely hands off and that has an engineering team backing it up and making sure it's up and running, it's very different from you hosting your own node and installing BTC Pay Server and being on the hook for updates, for maintaining liquidity in your channel, and maintaining the server up and running. Because anyone that has worked in any startup, in any tech startup, knows that servers are not, a thing that you set and forget. Servers are things that will go down and will, have random hardware failures when you least expect it. And it would take, it takes a full engineering team to make sure your server is up and running. So if you can't afford that your payment processor goes down, you really are, I think you should be looking at a hosted solution such as OpenNode. But if you're not worried about any of that, and if having, some downtime is completely acceptable for you, and if you prioritize being completely self-sovereign and not having to rely on any payment processor to accept payments, then you most definitely should use BTC Pay Server. Even before BTC Pay Server, you didn't need really a third party to accept payments. You could just simply have a Bitcoin wallet and just generate addresses um, for every transaction that you wanted to accept. But BTC Pay Server just packages that all up in a very nice, dashboard, and has plugins for a lot of e-commerce platforms. So I guess that using BTC Pay Server would be a way to bring Bitcoin into all these platforms, and it gives Bitcoin payments a lot nicer payment experience. But I think the use cases are quite different, and the target demographic for BTC Pay Server and OpenNode, they're quite different. At least that's I think so. Yeah.
Okay, got it. I think we're going to go ahead and move beyond OpenNode now here. So you have a different project going right now, I believe. I don't know how to say it out loud. So Laaps or Laaps, Lightning
Yeah. I
apps.
usually just say Laaps, but yeah, Laaps is just short for Lightning apps. Yeah.
Got it. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so yeah, Laaps.co, that's the URL for it. That's just another side project of mine that I developed to help showcase different Lightning apps that people are developing. And it's really just a very simple showcase of Lightning apps. So every Monday, a new set of Lightning apps is showcased, and people can vote on them. People can comment on their favorite apps. They just have to be logged in with Twitter, or today I introduced a login with your own Lightning node. So if you're running your own non-custodial wallet, you can simply log in with your using your node, your Lightning wallet to sign up, and you can log in without having to connect your Twitter account, and you can vote on all the apps, and you can comment on all the apps. And really the focus of the project is to make sure that everyone developing things on top of Lightning right now has a way of making their app known, and making sure that people are testing and using their apps. Because there's a lot of, so as I mentioned before, the fact that Lightning allows for instant payments and for micro payments and for things such as streaming of payments. There's a lot of different use cases that are going to people are going to come up with, and I think having a way of making sure that those new business models are showcased is really it was my goal with the Labs.co platform. In the future, I want to introduce different sections. So I want to have a section if you want to look for Lightning wallets. There's a list of all the Lightning wallets, and you can simply filter by, okay, I want a Lightning wallet that's non-custodial, that runs on Android, and also is it has incoming liquidity and set up for me, and you can really narrow down exactly the kinds of things you're looking for. And I want to introduce a section just for stores that accept Lightning. But right now, the focus of the platform is to showcase really Lightning applications.
Got it. I just wanted to give a quick disclaimer to our listeners. I am a sponsor of Laaps, or the Lightning Apps project. Just wanted to put that out there. What would you say is your favorite app that you've seen on the platform, or maybe even outside the platform?
Yeah. So in the platform, there's a lot of Lightning apps that were submitted, but weren't published yet. So unfortunately, Labs.co isn't a full, complete set of all the things developed on Lightning, but hopefully someday it will be. But I don't know. There's really a lot of interesting things being built on top of Lightning, and just running Labs and Labs.co, and just going there and seeing what the featured lap of the week, the featured laps of the week are. It has exposed me to a lot of applications, and some of them even being on Twitter and being, in all these Telegram groups and Slack groups, trying to find out what everyone's been working on. Even then, I didn't have the chance of trying out all of the applications that were submitted. So I don't know, but there's a lot of different concepts on Lightning. I really like this Lightning wallet that is really just a Telegram bot. So it's a custodial wallet but it's disguised as a Telegram bot, and it has all the functionality that you would expect out of a Lightning wallet. Um, but so you can send payments and you can receive payments, and it has this really cool feature, which is sats. It's called inside the application, it's called, so the application, it's called LNTX bot. So if you want to search for that, and you just have to add it on your Telegram. But it has this really cool feature which is called sats for ads. So you if you want to advertise a product, you can just pay satoshis and it will broadcast the message. So as an LNTX bot user, you can say that I will accept anyone to advertise to me as long as they pay me 1 satoshi per character. So anyone that's willing to advertise to you for 1 satoshi per character can easily do that, and you can make money actually by just receiving these messages about all sorts of things really. But it's a really easy way to stack sats by just having this Telegram bot installed on your Telegram. But there's a lot of other apps. This application that allows you to receive money for liking tweets and retweeting tweets. So there's a lot of people focusing on the earning aspect of the Lightning Network. There's the paid app, so pay.co, which is just an application that you can do tasks and receive satoshis for it. But there are a lot of things. There's Lightning Pizza, which allows you to buy Domino's pizza with Lightning payments, and you even get a discount. So it's really a fantastic application. There's a lot of things, but I'm really excited to see, obviously, what people will continue building, but especially when it comes to business models that weren't possible with traditional payment systems. So business models that rely on micropayments or rely on the streaming of payments. And I think that will open the door for so many interesting use cases. And I think, for example, the example I mentioned before, sats for ads, you're receiving, 3 cents, 5 cents for someone that wants to broadcast a message. They're paying you directly, 5 cents. That would never be possible in the traditional, you know, payment methods, right? You could never withdraw 5 cents to your bank account, or no one could use a credit card to pay you 5 cents, right? So I think we're already starting to see a lot of these use cases. But as technology progress, as the technology evolves and as more and more Lightning wallets start to allow for the streaming of payments and things like LN URL, which allows, for scanning a QR code and talking directly with the service you're trying to pay or receive money from. So your wallet is talking directly and negotiating directly with that service. those kinds of things are, take a while for people to, develop them, and then really just envision that that is possible, and then develop them, and then having that being adopted. Because obviously Lightning being a decentralized, no one is really in charge of, there's multiple Lightning wallets, there's multiple Lightning implementations, so it takes some time for people to congregate, and all for everyone to adopt all these technologies. But as that starts to, happen more and more, we will start seeing more and more applications that use Lightning in ways that, we can't even fathom right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like Sats for ads myself. I use it on both sides. I make Sats and I use it to advertise the podcast. So, what's your opinion on how newbies can start using the Lightning Network? Is there like an easy way to do that now, or is that still kind of needs to be built out?
Well, I think it depends on the level of technical insight that you want to have into the Lightning Network, right? If you want to understand every single thing and run your own node, maybe you should buy a nodal box, and those guys will ship one to you, and it will be very easy to, connect your Zap wallet to that and be running your own node. But it's really a bit more hands-on and requires some investment. But if you just want to try out Lightning, if you don't care much about running your own node and really understanding everything, I think right now one of the best options is to install the Breeze wallet, which is a wallet that's available for mobile, so iOS and Android. And it has really nice user experience. And the team actually, when you boot up Breeze for the first time, they will set up a channel from them to you, so you instantly have incoming liquidity, and the wallet is Lightning only, so there's no confusion about which funds do I have on chain or which funds do I have off chain. So it's a really nice simplified user experience that you can just put, 50,000 sats, 100,000 sats, whatever amount of money you're comfortable with, and you send some Bitcoin there, and you just go to Laaps.co and you find out which, okay, this lap looks interesting. Let me try this out. And you can instantly interact with the lap using Breeze Wallet, and you can try it out. And if with something like, the app that allows you to get money by liking tweets, for example, you can like a tweet, get some balance in your account, instantly withdraw it to your Breeze wallet. So you can really start playing with all these use cases, and start interacting with permissionless instant micropayments things, which is going to, and hopefully the Breeze team will continue improving their wallet. But there are really a bunch of wallets right now, and if you want to jump to, okay, I think I'm done with using a mobile wallet, and I really want to upgrade to running my own node, then you should be looking at things like maybe the Casa node, or Nodal box. But I think the easiest way right now would be to run the Breeze wallet.
Got it. So, like along the same lines, something that's a bit of a theme on my podcast is the idea of skipping over the base chain of Bitcoin and introducing newbies directly to Lightning as a way to kind of give them a quote unquote perfect UX experience. Do you have any kind of opinion about that?
Yeah, I think what a lot of teams are doing by skipping on-chain is actually one of the best ways to go if you want to simplify the user experience. Because if we start looking at 5 to 10 years down the line, no one is really going to expect the end user to understand the intricacies of on-chain versus off-chain versus money you have on a specific channel, but now you spent it and you have incoming liquidity. So it's really it everything will have to be simplified in order for adoption to happen, right? And even if right now people that are using the Lightning Network are most likely, Bitcoiners that, wouldn't mind having to learn a couple things to use the Lightning Network. But if we really want this to be widely adopted as a means of doing payments online, I think that's the best way to go. If you just find a way of simplifying everything to just a single number, and that's the amount of Satoshis that you have available in your wallet right now, and you don't have to think about, will I be able to pay this service because I don't have a route to them, or is this Is this invoice on chain? I don't know. What is an on chain address? And if the wallet can manage all of that for you, that's really that's really the way to go. Obviously, there are a number of challenges to make that happen, and I think a lot of the teams working to overcome all those obstacles are, are doing a magnificent job at that. But there's also, but there are still a lot of challenges that I'm sure that everyone will work together to overcome. But it will be challenging, but I think, in my opinion, is the way to go. And I applaud everyone that has been tackling that head on, because really it would be a lot easier to, just simplify it for you as a developer. Okay, I will just have an on-chain wallet and I will have a Lightning wallet, and I don't want to establish incoming channels to my users. It would be a lot easier, but it would be make the experience a lot worse for the end user. So every company that has been focusing on the user experience side of it, that's a lot of extra work, but I think it's well worth it in the end, for sure.
Understood. On the third episode of the Lightning Junkies podcast, I had John Carvalho from Bitrefill, and we had kind of talked about having the closed loop or circular economy. Do you have any kind of opinion about how we get there? How we kind of close those loops and how we can kind of get more people to, get Bitcoin and stay in Bitcoin, and having that kind of that Morpheus meme of at the end you'll never sell, you'll just kind of keep it and just keep it going around.
Yeah, I think that's the goal for everyone. If I could never sell all the sats, that would be ideal, right? But I think it will be challenging to reach the point that we have a full circular Bitcoin economy. I think a lot of factors will have to play out for that to happen. But I think a good way for you personally, for anyone personally, to uh, start have a big incentive to do that is just to earn Bitcoin, because earning Bitcoin will make you much more incentivized to actually spend Bitcoin, because really you could just sell it on some exchange, but then you have to send the Bitcoin to an exchange, and then you have to send from the exchange back to your bank account. So it would be a lot easier for you as someone that earns Bitcoin to just spend the Bitcoin at some merchant that accepts Bitcoin, or at Bitrefill, or at some other service that accepts Bitcoin. So I think that would be a very good first step. If you earn Bitcoin, you are much more incentivized to actually use it in your day to day, so you don't have to go through the trouble of selling it and losing value, because then Bitcoin is going up and you sold all of it because you had to sell more than you wanted to spend, just so you're not constantly selling and waiting for bank wires that can take a few days in some countries. So I think that would be a good first step. And then, thinking longer term, if we see Bitcoin's value appreciate over time, and if more and more currencies hyperinflate, which is, no currency survived the test of time so far, no fiat currency did. So if more and more currencies hyperinflate and more people buy Bitcoin as an alternative to their government money, then I think it will be much easier, because then if people lose trust in their fiat money, then they will be also incentivized to push people to pay them in Bitcoin, and they will be incentivized to pay others in Bitcoin, because they lost trust in the fiat. But I think that's a much longer term vision, and it will obviously take a lot of boom and bust cycles, and it will take maybe world changing things to happen. So maybe it's a little bit more of an unreasonable thing. Yeah, I think personally anyone can strive to just work for Bitcoin, even if it's not their main thing. Just do some work on the side, and ask for Bitcoin, or even sell things for Bitcoin. You can sell all kinds of things, really. Bitcoiners are always on the lookout for new merch, and for new hats and stickers and things like that. So there's plenty of opportunities, I think, to earn, even if it's just small amounts of Bitcoin, to earn some Bitcoin, which will incentivize you to then spend that Bitcoin. So I think that's a good way of bootstrapping it. But I don't think I have a good solution to bring the full hyper Bitcoinized world to us much quicker.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of one of my last questions here is there anything on a tech level that you're looking forward to on the Lightning Network side?
Yeah, there are a lot of things on the works right now, and I think one cool thing that should be coming to the Lightning protocol soon are just ways of sending Bitcoin directly to another Lightning node without having to have an invoice. So right now, if you want to send a payment through the Lightning Network, you need to ask the recipient of the payment to send you a Lightning invoice for a specific amount, and the Lightning invoices expire. So it's not the ideal solution for some use cases. So I think having that, which is kind of a simple thing that you could always have done with on-chain Bitcoin, right? So just give someone an address and they can send Bitcoin to that address at any time, any amount of Bitcoin, really. But on the Lightning Network, we do need the invoices, and which has a lot of advantages, for example, because there's no way of you sending the wrong amount of Bitcoin. So it's kind of a trade-off thing. But just having that option to just send spontaneous payments to any Lightning node will open up some extra possibilities. Then the streaming of payments will also bring, which is something that no one I think is doing right now. But I think having support for that at both the protocol and the wallets level will be very, very interesting. And then just things like L2, which will remove a lot of the complexity there is in the Lightning protocol right now. We'll get rid of things like the watchtowers or having to come online very frequently. So I think that's a good thing to be on the lookout for. Unfortunately, it does require a change at the base layer, so it will probably take some time for that to get implemented and merged, and then L2 to actually be fully built out and adopted. But I think that's on a more medium term. That's a thing that everyone should that likes Lightning should be excited for. But on a shorter term, I would say spontaneous payments for sure, and then also ways of doing streaming of payments. That is very, very interesting.
Yeah, the streaming of payments is when Andreas had that in one of his videos in 2016. That's one of the things that really kind of got me into the idea of Lightning initially. So recently, there was a exploit in all of the implementations of Lightning. Do you think that was a big deal, and do you think it was kind of handled well by the overall ecosystem?
I think it was very well handled. I don't think there are any people out there that lost largest amount of Bitcoin or any amount of Bitcoin really to that bug. Obviously, it was a very serious bug. Not trying to downplay the seriousness of that bug, but I think it was definitely well handled by everyone. And I think the work that everyone in developing the Lightning protocol has done since the very beginning, with having strict limits in place and advocating for not having serious amounts of money in the Lightning network, really was a way of telling people, please be careful. This is not final, and this is not battle tested yet. So don't put serious amounts of money in it. And some people did still put crazy amounts of money in it, but yeah, I think the protocol developers were very specific about that particular thing. So I don't think no one is to blame, and I think it was definitely very well handled by having people warned about the bugs and have everyone update and upgrade their Lightning nodes and their Lightning wallets before actually releasing the bug, and then actually doing the responsible disclosure and explaining exactly how and why different Lightning implementations were affected by the bug, and actually giving a lot of detail about what the bug really was. So I think, yeah, it was definitely well handled by everyone involved.
That's good to hear. So, last question, I promise. I'm going to Berlin in a couple of weeks to the Lightning Network conference, and I noticed that you're going as well. Is there anything there that you're looking forward to and anything that you're excited about?
Yeah, so I'm excited just for the conference in and of itself, right? It's very exciting to have a whole conference dedicated to just the Lightning Network. And I was fortunate enough to have attended a few Bitcoin focused conferences, and that has been a lot of fun, just hanging out with all these Bitcoiners and having, in the Bitcoin conference, you can always start a conversation with anyone and have a subject about, to talk about with them. But on a even more niche conference just about Lightning and about all things Lightning, I think just the conference itself will be very, very interesting. And just getting to know all the people working in the space, some of them that I haven't met yet. Well, I'm very excited to meet. And I think there are a lot of events happening in the days prior to the conference. I'm not exactly sure on the details. I'm sure that if you follow the Lightning Conference Twitter account, or if you go to the Lightning Conference website, you can find more details about it. But the community has been arranging all these meetups and events in the days before and maybe after the conference. So there's kind of, even though the conference is just, I think 2 days, there's a whole week of things going on in Berlin about all things Lightning. So it's turning into this Lightning Week thing, which is going to be very exciting. I know that there's a meetup, I think the day before the conference starts. That's just a roundtable discussion with people building things on top of Lightning and going to some stage, I guess, to present their projects. And there's a great lineup of speakers, just handy hackers and people just developing things on the side, just going on stage and showing off their creations and asking for feedback. So I think that will be, very, very interesting. But then just the conference itself, and it has an amazing lineup of speakers that I'm really excited to attend the conference itself also.
Yeah, that little the little side event, speech thing that you mentioned. I'm actually going to be giving a little talk about the Lightning Junkies podcast, and I'm terribly nervous because I'm not really a public speaker, so we'll have to see how that goes. But other than that, I'm kind of out of questions at the moment. Do you want to go ahead and give all the listeners, all the details about OpenNode, the Laaps project, the Twitter, and all that?
Yeah, for sure. So if you're a business and if you're looking to accept Bitcoin payments, head over to OpenNode.com. You can find all the information about us there. And if you just want to, you're not interested in accepting payments, but you still want to follow our journey, you can follow us on Twitter at OpenNode CEO. And if you're just a Lightning Network explorer and you want to try out some new Lightning apps, to visit this showcase of Lightning apps that I have online, you can head over to Laaps.co. That's LAPPS.co. Or you can follow the Twitter account, which also showcases all the Lightning apps that go up on the website at LaapsLN. So yeah, that's how to find out about new Lightning apps, and also accept Bitcoin payments if you want that also.
How about if they want to find you?
Yeah, if you want to reach out to me, I'm on Twitter at 8BitGomes. So 8, the number 8, BIT, Gomes, Gomes. My DMs are open. You can reach out to me for anything really. And if you're working on any Lightning app and you want some feedback, or you want to go up on the Laaps showcase, just hit me up, and I'm always down to try out any new Lightning apps.
All right, perfect. Well, Rui, I really appreciate you joining me on the Lightning Junkies podcast.
Thank you.
That was the 5th episode of the Lightning Junkies podcast. What did you think? Did you learn anything? Like I said at the beginning, that was the longest episode of the podcast I've ever recorded. If you did learn anything or take anything away from this podcast, please consider chipping in to the crowdfunding link, the tipping.me, or the bottle.li. You can also support the podcast by subscribing and leaving a review. It would help me tremendously. As mentioned on previous podcasts, I'll be attending the Lightning Network conference in Berlin. Great shows are coming down the pipeline. Stay tuned for those. For now, I'll see you on the Lightning Network.